Hello, guys. Welcome to a special edition of the Six Yards podcast. We have Supreet with us today, and we are going to be discussing about Arsenal in particular. This is an Arsenal special episode. Welcome, Supreet. How have you been? I'm sure not too good.
I've been pretty miserable over the last few days, to be honest.
That is understandable given how wretched a form Arsenal are on lately. Supreet, we'll just start with the Burnley game first. We'll move on to the Southampton game, and then we'll come to the Everton game yesterday.
Hmm.
Starting with, like I said, Burnley, another home defeat. Uh, Arsenal has, I mean, they haven't exactly set the world alight in the Premier League this season, but at least during the previous reigns, say Emery or Wenger, home form was something that at least they had that going for you. This season it has gone all downhill. I mean, what did you think of the performance? And we'll get into the in-game situations and the decisions later. But what did you think of that game in particular?
Uh, it's hard to, kind of isolate a specific game and talk about it because it honestly feels like all the games these days, that Arsenal are playing are kind of just copies of each other. Arsenal
Yeah.
making stupid goals, making stupid lunges and tackles, collecting red cards, own goals that we have conceded over the last few games. The inability to put some cohesive passing around, team sitting back, allowing us possession, but with no, with no intensity, with no, what do you say, precision, and with so many crosses coming in, no marksman to kind of take those crosses. It's kind of been a very familiar story. The Burnley game itself, I mean, the first half was kind of uh, like it was like a very dead game, and second half when we were slowly putting something together, and a moment of stupidity from Granit Xhaka. I don't know what else to expect from him, and we kind of threw away the game, conceded a stupid own goal, and
Yeah.
it's just anticlimactic that Burnley did not have a shot on target, and yet came away with all 3 points, right? And
True.
yeah, it's like when things go bad, it just all seems to be going bad, and that just happened, with the fans in the stadium. Yeah, so it was like a very disappointing loss. I mean, I'd mentioned on Twitter after the Tottenham loss that the points are still there to be taken. We've already faced all the big teams away from home. At least starting with Burnley and Southampton, we had opportunities to pick up points, at least get some sort of confidence back in the team. And all we've done is just pick up a point since point out of 9 possible points in those 3 games, right?
Yeah, and you mentioned Xhaka's red card. Discipline has been something that Arsenal have faced this issue time and again, especially under Mikel Arteta. I read a very insane statistic lately that Arsenal picked up what 7, 8 red
Yeah,
cards under Arteta.
even red cards.
That
Yeah.
that is shocking. I mean, in terms of discipline, I don't know. But do you think maybe Arteta has got something to do with it as well because he keeps on selecting the same players? I'm sure we'll get into it this discussion in detail, of course, on Arteta himself. But it really doesn't help, right? Him selecting the likes of Chaka and some other players. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think selection itself has a bearing on in-game management. I think these are professional football players. Um, Xhaka holding the throat of a player, or Pepe losing his cool against Leeds, Gabriel making that unnecessary tackle in the middle of the pitch with Theo Walcott literally going nowhere. I mean, there's only so much a coach can do. I wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily say it's the manager's fault. I think, and I think Ceballos was also pretty lucky to not pick up a red card yesterday for that tackle.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
El Nini was lucky to not pick up a red card against Burnley. I mean, if imagine if those were actually spotted by the referee and we had picked up those red cards, right? We would probably have to uh, play reserves for our next match against City and Chelsea. You know, that's a state we are in right now, and I don't know if
Yeah.
it comes to a point where these players are actually uncoachable. There's a reason why why Madrid were okay loaning out Ceballos. He's just not good enough for them, and it seems like he is not Premier League level. He, uh, I mean, he could have probably just picked up a red card yesterday and in the first half, and that would have been game over then and there itself. So yeah, I mean, I don't think selection itself has. I mean, we'll talk about the selection thing later, obviously, but these are professional football players, right? You need to know how to conduct yourself on a pitch, even especially in a moment where your team needs you in in a
Yeah.
situation where the club is languishing
True.
in literally the relegation zone. Uh, you need to keep your cool. And Jaka is one of the senior players in the squad, so there is literally no excuse, right? To
Yeah.
why that. I mean, even if it seemed like the Burnley player was actually trying to protect him and move him away from the fight, and he just lost his cool. I mean, we don't need that sort of boyish behavior right now at this in the team. And from there on, we just kind of lost it, and it was just sad to see how that entire match unfolded for us.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that would have hurt the most is the fact that Arsenal were actually looking good in the second half. They registered what, three, four, five shots on target. It was probably looking like a matter of time before you guys open the scoring, but then one moment of madness undoes all the good work.
Yeah.
So that's sort of been the story of Arsenal, I
It was
guess,
the
for the
same.
season.
It was the same case against Southampton, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we were shoddy in the first half, and like Aubameyang said in the post-match interview, the players were nervous. A series of losses can cause it, and that is understandable. But I thought
yeah.
we came out in the second half really well. I mean, it wasn't obviously Barcelona-esque at its peak, but we were stringing passes together. We were trying to make something happen, and we scored a very nice goal as well. It was good to
Indeed,
see
indeed.
us scoring an open a goal from open play after so long. And that's what it's come to. And then we just throw it away. And Southampton could have so easily won it, right? One pass, one moment of magic, or a header that could have gone astray, and they would have nicked the points, and we would have, and it would have been yet another defeat for at home for Arsenal.
Indeed, absolutely, and I guess it, like you said, it's the same story. Another stupid foul. It's the lack of discipline is just simply shocking from the players, and yeah, I mean, I suppose not everything can be blamed upon the coach, but for sure that must be a very worrying, run of form, or rather run of show from the players in terms of discipline for Arteta as well. Uh, it's unbelievable how many red cards Arsenal are picking these days. Uh, right. So, Supreet, moving on to the Southampton game, like you just said, another game where Arsenal conceded the goal first. Cheap goal again, a completely preventable goal.
Yeah.
Does the back line, or does the midfield? I mean, like Aubameyang said, they are very nervous at this moment, understandably so. But this is some schoolboy level stuff, losing the ball so cheaply in midfield, and then I guess Kieran Tierney could also be at a little bit held to be accountable for that goal for Walcott.
Yeah.
Is the team completely devoid of confidence right now? What is going wrong? I mean, what are your
I
thoughts?
mean, that's quite clear. It's so. I mean, I don't want to pick out individual names. Defense is a collective effort, and if you look at the table, we've not been that shoddy defensively. We've conceded 18 goals, I think, this season, and
Yeah,
we have conceded more, and they are top of the
yeah.
table. Um, it's a combination of multiple things. In terms of confidence, absolutely, we are at rock bottom right now. I think Alan Shearer mentioned how awful this Arsenal squad are, and he and we might literally be looking for towards a relegation dogfight if we lose to Chelsea next weekend, and we have literally a 16th versus 17th uh, placed match between Arsenal and Brighton after that, and that's kind of uh, that's kind of proof that we've just not performed to the level that we can this season. The confidence has been shocking. We are unable to uh, score goals. There's been a lack of creativity. We concede stupid goals as well, and that kind of
Yeah.
boils down to several things: team selection, right up to the indiscipline, and several other factors. I mean, I can obviously go on and talk about how the manager is at fault and is not at fault, but yeah, I mean, we'll reserve that for a later part of the podcast.
Yeah. True, true. And again, so coming to the Everton game, again, there's so it's actually, even the most dumbest of fans who have no idea what they're seeing can see that there is a clear lack of creativity in the Arsenal team. They're struggling to create chances, and again, so like you said, in the last what 10 odd games. You've had four goals, out of which two are penalties. So again, that was on show again against Everton, and this is again, so particularly Everton have been ravaged through injuries of their own. They've been missing some key players, and they are not as good a side that started the season. So this was probably one of the best chances for Arsenal to pick up points, but then again they struggled, holding with an own goal again. So where is it all? Again, what did you make of that performance? Was it any better? Because Arsenal did give a go in the second half, particularly, but how do you assess that performance coming off in the back of such a wretched run of form?
No, to be honest, I mean, Everton played badly. I mean, if you look at the game from their point of view, but
Hmm.
if you see at it at an overall level, I think even they knew it was. I mean, it was enough to put them through the line and gather
Yeah,
points, right? And that is a case. I mean, that has been the case recently. Even the match against Tottenham, against Wolves, um, against Burnley, uh, to some extent against Southampton and
yeah,
Everton, obviously, where teams are happy to allow Arsenal to have the ball and hit us on the counter,
right,
because they know we don't have that sort of creative spark uh, to make something really happen, and we don't have anyone up front that can actually inspire confidence, right? Uh,
true.
we obviously missed out with Aubameyang starting yesterday. In Nketiah, really, I don't know. There's a lot of hype around him, but I don't think he is Premier League level yet. He can't hold the line. He
Hmm.
is not a good header of the ball. He doesn't link up very well. He's not got pace. But it seemed like he was chosen above Lacazette, who is a 46.5 million pound signing, right?
Right,
And yet we kind of were pulling strings in the second half. We hit the post, and towards the end, the last couple of minutes, we created a couple of chances and came close, but still not good enough to even pick up a point. And
hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's I don't know what else I can say about that game, right? It kind of just boils down to us, being in the relegation fight right now. We are 16th, and that performance also told of a team that's really struggling to uh, put points on the board.
Yeah. So now, Supreet, coming to the overall picture, of course, it's not looking very good for Arsenal right now. Uh, first of all, I'd like to start with do you think Arteta should be sacked right now?
That is a very complex question, honestly. For someone, so obviously, I'm saying that from a point of view that you are a neutral in the sense you might not really be aware of all of the runnings of Arsenal.
Right.
I read a lot of articles across the internet about what's happening with the board and what's panning out behind the scenes. To answer the question whether Arteta has to be sacked or not, it's a very complex question, to be honest. Um, this entire season is not obviously the doing of one person alone. It's
Hmm.
been years of mismanagement, right from the last couple of years of Wenger, uh, the Emery era. Um, we papered over the cracks somehow last season, and this season
Right.
it's just all out there in the open. And it's been coming for some time, right? We had the example of Manchester United to look to, who, I mean, Alex Ferguson left them in 2013, I think, and um, since then it's been a constant state of flux. They've had two or three managers come over: Moyes, Van Gaal,
Yeah.
Moyes for a while, Jose, Solskjaer now, and we should have learnt our lessons, right? But we didn't. Arsene Wenger left, and what happened at Manchester United was, not only did Ferguson leave, David Gill also left at the same time, right? So that's
Yeah.
not just a long-standing manager, but also a very senior member of the Manchester United hierarchy left, leaving at the same time.
Right.
And at Arsenal, Arsene Wenger left. I mean, Arsene Wenger announced that he was leaving, and completely out of the blue, Ivan Gazidis also quit. Right? I honestly
Right.
did not have a high opinion of Gazidis. He comes more of as a very business-minded person, but maybe he was a right fit for the job. In any case, he left, and that kind of meant that we lost two key figures at the top, and since then, since that short period of time, uh, we've had so much flux at the top. We got in Raul Sanlehi, we got in Sven Mislintat as the head of recruitment. We got Hus Fahmy, who is the chief negotiator, and
Yeah.
even he's quit. All of these people who I just mentioned have quit, and it's within the space of what, 2 or 3 years. And all the executive departures that I'm talking about, we've had a director of high performance leave. We've had an analytics expert that we had hired leave. There was a head of international scouting, Francis Kagigawa, I think his name is. He bought in Fabregas. He identified Martinelli. Even he's gone.
Mm.
And that kind of has meant that we've had to promote Vinay Venkatesham and Edu. Edu has no experience at the European level. He's obviously done this
Yeah.
at Corinthians in Brazil in the past. Um, they are young folks, and all of them have come into the spotlight at the exact same time, right? Arteta
Right.
is 38, Edu is 42, I think, and Venkatesham is 40, and all of them have come into this complex club with such a complex situation at the same time, that it's all suddenly seemed to be unraveling, right? And this is just the board story that I'm talking about. This is just one half of the story.
True.
There's obviously so many other layers to it. How we've handled our transfers over all these years. Uh, we've apparently spent over 500 million in transfers, but in terms of receivables, we've had no success. We've received somewhere about 200, to the tune of 200 million in terms of receivables for players. We've sold players like Oxlade Chamberlain, Iwobi,
Yeah.
over the years. And what has happened is, due to all of these changes happening, we've not really made we've made all these short term transfers that have kind of snowballed into this crisis situation that we're talking about right now, right? So let me kind of take you back to 2018, which was Wenger's
Yeah.
last season. Sanchez left, and we signed Mkhitaryan from United in a exchange deal, and we signed
Hmm.
Aubameyang, right? Now they were in their late 20s. I think Mkhitaryan was 29 and Aubameyang is 28 then. We had Lichtsteiner, we had Socrates, Luis, all 30s. And on top of that, we've signed Willian for 30, who's 32 years old.
Right.
We've splashed the cash on Ozil. We've given him a big 350k a week contract. I think that's going to last I think that was a 3 year contract
Mm.
that we kind of gave him.
Yeah.
We repeated the same mistake with Aubameyang. Now Aubameyang, obviously, I know he's been stellar for us, but you also have to question this decision of giving a 3 year contract to a player who is 31 years old and someone who is slowing down, right? Who is going to slow down?
Although to be fair, Aubameyang did justify the
Absolutely,
contract
I'm
he's
not denying
got.
that. I'm not denying that. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think maybe it's still too early to question that. I hope he's going to fire in goals that will hopefully propel us to a slightly higher position in the league. But then we did the same mistake with Willian, right? We got. I mean,
Yeah.
here we what we've done is according to me the planning here was, we'll get these experienced players like Luis and Willian from Chelsea, who've had considerable Premier League and Champions League experience. Uh,
Yeah.
we got Cedric at right back. He has over 100 and over 100 Premier League appearances with Southampton, and offers something at the right, to kind of provide some more depth into the squad. And if you look at it, at the end of the day, none of these transfers have worked. We smashed the transfer record
True.
to sign Pepe under Emery for 72 million, and we are yet to successfully, uh, fit him into the squad. Right, that kind of
Yeah.
is symbolic, right?
True.
You buy a player for such a large value, and you're unable to get that player performing even after a year is kind of speaks. See, my point is not to say that it's Arteta's fault or Emery's fault or the board's fault. It's just an amalgamation of all of these mistakes that we've done, and the fact that we've struggled so badly in the transfer market is, and we are kind of at a situation where we're making such huge losses, and we have to wait till the end of the season for such a big clear out to even be able to think of signing someone, right? Uh, Say Hassan Mawar or even a Christian Eriksen on loan, a creative
Hmm.
midfielder. It kind of means that we have to wait for this exodus to take place. Um, and kind of take a and again kind of take a, like a bet on a player, and hope that that player performs and answers all those questions that the squad is kind of asking of you right now, right? um,
Indeed.
yeah, so you obviously asked me the question, is it time for Arteta to go? It's a very hard question to answer given that there are so many layers of complexity, and it's very hard to blame just one person. Obviously, Mikel has gone out there and said, you know, put the bullets on me because the results are justifying that. And what is also shocking is, uh, so I would say that the manager needs to be let go of if he has lost the dressing room, and
Yeah.
if indeed the manager has lost the dressing room, that is Arteta has lost the dressing room in this case. I think we will just have to wait for this busy Christmas period to get over, and start looking for a replacement to save the season, right? Uh,
Yeah.
because if you've lost the dressing room, there's no coming back from that. I mean,
True.
obviously, Edu came out last week and said they see a beautiful future under Arteta, under the management of Mikel Arteta, and those were his words. But if he has lost the dressing room right now, there's nothing to say that he will regain that confidence, right? The fact that
Yeah.
we've alienated players like Ozil, Socrates. There's apparently been a rift between Luis and the manager, and the fact that
Yeah.
Arteta continues to pick Willian despite him putting in such crap performances. We picked him up against. I mean, we put him in the starting lineup against Leeds. Apparently, even after he broke the club rules and traveled to Dubai.
True.
Um, So is it a human resources problem? Is it a man management problem? It's very hard to say that right now. But if the manager has lost the dressing room, I'm afraid to say how, however badly I wanted to work out for Arteta, I think the club needs to take a decision and maybe bring in someone that has worked with the structure of the club in the past, right?
Hmm.
So I, the reason I don't want to place the blame on Mikel is because this is his first real football management job, and Arsenal is the worst place to do it. Primarily because we still have the Wenger hangover, and it is a very complex club.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of explained why it has been so complex with so much flux, right?
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. And while we're talking on that subject, right? But the whole, for what it's worth, I think I also admired Arteta because of the way he managed the situation at the end of last season. Obviously, winning the cup and the Community Shield, it's not it's not an easy feat. And he did, defense has always been Arsenal's Achilles heel, so he sort of came in and tightened up that as well. So I think he started on the right footing, but he really doesn't help himself, does he? Like you said,
yeah.
persisting with clearly below par Willian, who probably doesn't give a damn about the club. He's made enemies out of senior players. Again, not a wise idea, and selecting the same players week in week out who always sort of tend to underperform, Chaka, Bellerin. So I think he really doesn't help himself in that regard, but there is potential there. I mean, obviously we saw it last season. So let's say if he were to get sacked, who would you bring in as the replacement? Because, like you just mentioned, Arsenal is a very complex club to manage. Clearly, the successor may not have uh, ample of funds to work with, and then there is the whole dynamic of the dressing room. Senior players on big fat contracts, long term contracts. Who would be your ideal successor if, let's say, Arteta were to get sacked tonight?
Um, See, that's a very difficult question to answer again because, uh, okay, so there are two options that Arsenal have right now, right? Get someone in as a stopgap till the end of the season, rescue the season, ensure that we finish, um,
Hmm.
I mean, well above the relegation zone, at least at a respectable 10th place, right? You could do that with, say, someone like Gus Hiddink or, someone.
We know all about him. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying go-setting is the answer, but someone in the short term who can rescue the season, get the players
Right.
together, and fix the shit that's on the pitch, right? A manager that is only going to focus on on-field affairs and the team, and not worry about anything else. Or you could just bring in someone with a long-term vision. Now, let's say we go with the latter. The selection process for that is not going to be easy. It's not something that you decide in a week and say, okay, Mikel, you're out, and we've hired someone. It's going to be a long run process where we will shortlist a few options, um, and then have to take a calculated decision, right?
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you there, but don't you think that should have already been started given the current state of affairs? Arsenal have been in free fall for quite some time now.
I don't think so.
Ideally, shouldn't the board be, sounding out potential replacements, or where you just got flat-footed that it would never come to this place
I
in
don't
the
think
first
so.
place?
I don't think so because I think, I mean, Mikel, and the entire team knows that this slide needs to be arrested in terms of this dip in form, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and it was kind of clear right after the Tottenham game that we cannot afford any more losses. So, I mean, and since then we've lost two games, right? It's out of three.
Mm. Yeah.
Again, even if the board starts looking for a manager right now, it's a process that will easily take them a month.
Mm.
Do
Mm.
we stick on with Arteta and hope he rescues the season, or do we get in someone long term? That is a very difficult question to answer. So even if we get someone in the short term to manage till the end of the season, and then ask him to leave and then clear out the squad and get someone to build the squad from there on, the question is who would want to come to such a complex structure given we've already seen what
Right.
happened. I mean, okay, so I mean, I can take the example of Chelsea here, who have been changing managers so frequently in the last 16 years. But on the flip side, if you look at it, they've also consistently been winning trophies, right? And
True.
that is, I mean, you had Scolari. I mean, you had so many managers. I mean, Ancelotti. You had Hiddink.
Yeah.
You had Villas Boas. You had, I mean,
Grant.
yeah, you had Avram Grant. Avram Grant took you guys
Yeah.
to the Champions League final, and
Indeed.
he
Yeah.
won the Champions League with you, right? In
Right.
what kind of worked in Chelsea's favor was that core of players that deeply cared about the club. And at this point at Arsenal, there's no one. Uh, and when I'm saying deep core, it I'm not just talking about the core of players such as Lampard, Terry, Cech, Drogba, Cole, etc. I'm also talking about the owner. And at this point,
Sure.
Arsenal, uh, you cannot say the same, right? There is no real core of players. In fact, I don't even know who the captain is right now. We had Rob Holding who was a captain against Everton. I thought David
Yeah.
Lewis was the most senior member of the squad, right? And,
Yeah. That
and
sort of indicates towards that rift that we're talking about as
exactly,
well.
exactly. And in terms of
Yeah.
the ownership, I mean, I don't need to stress more about the Kroenkes and their style of management. I mean, at least not on this podcast. So, yeah, so I mean, there are options out there. There is Pochettino. It would be fun to get him on, uh, get him at Arsenal. I admired him during his time at Tottenham. He built a solid
He
squad, and which actually Jose is actually reaping the rewards out of right now,
Yeah,
right?
he would actually be the ideal candidate, wouldn't
Yeah,
he?
but
Because
true,
the he has the experience working under a tight budget,
true,
and
but the
yeah,
difference here is he worked with Daniel Levy, who is a shrewd operator, and Daniel Levy's been stable at the club for ages.
yeah,
What's to say when the new manager at Arsenal comes in? You know, will Edu and Vinay Venkatesham be around? Who knows, right?
yeah,
There are rumors that Edu might be asked to leave very soon. Max Allegri is that an option? Diego Simeone. Why will all of these managers come to a team that kind of looks so broken right now? Uh,
yeah,
I mean, Diego Simeone, after his resume of Atletico, where they are topping the table right now in La Liga with a real chance of winning it. I mean, so I mean, these are the options
yeah,
right now. If you ask me, someone that I really admire, it's Ralph Rangnick. He kind of built Leipzig, uh, uh, and that entire structure over the last few years got them into the Champions League, got some consistency around
yeah,
them. Blooded in players like Upamecano and Werner. Uh, he's built a solid squad, but then again, Leipzig had a very different club structure.
true.
Uh, it's I'm assuming it was not as complex as Arsenal, so it's a very difficult question to answer, right? I mean, it
Yeah,
sounds very binary. Is it time to sack Arteta? Yes or no? But there are too many layers of complexity to even answer that question, right? And it's kind of scary to even say yes or no for me for an Arsenal fan, right? And I mean, if I say yes, who's going to come in, and will that person be able to rescue whatever is left of the squad? If I say no, is will Arteta be able to rescue this situation? It doesn't look like that, right? I'm actually fearing the worst now against City and Chelsea in coming games, and even against Brighton, I won't be surprised if Giroud and Welbeck score the winners against us. Right? Imagine Giroud and Welbeck actually ending Arteta's their ex teammates um, Arsenal managerial career. That kind of will be that kind of be. poetic or ironic, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I guess it all boils down to how deep into shit Arsenal are. I'm sorry to use the word. At the end of the day, while you definitely are in struggling or rather languishing in the wrong place in the Premier League, uh, I honestly don't think you're gonna get pulled into a relegation battle. But only thing is, like like you correctly mentioned, if Arteta has indeed lost the dressing room, then probably this players who have down tools will continue to put in awful performances like they are right now. Before we conclude, Supreet, I just have one final question for you. Like we just mentioned, all hypothetical scenarios considered, Arteta gets sacked, Arteta doesn't get sacked. Do you actually think Arsenal have, you know, do you think Arsenal can actually get relegated?
Clinton Morrison actually made a good point, I think, on Sky yesterday, the former Birmingham striker. And
Yeah,
he was like, if Leicester can win the league, why can't Arsenal get relegated? Right. And that kind of struck a chord with me. But that said, I think this notion of too big to fail or whatever is kind of true. I think we have, I mean, to be honest, over the last few games, we've not played terribly. Uh,
yeah,
uh, yes, we have Saka, who has been our best player this season. We have Martinelli, who's returned from injury yesterday. We
yeah,
offer an additional option up front. Uh, we have the January transfer window, and hoping we do able to. I mean, we are able to make one creative signing that kind of can make the difference to us. Um, so yeah, I mean, I definitely think we are better than Fulham, Sheffield United, and West Brom, who I think will get relegated. So I don't think we will eventually get pulled into the relegation dogfight. After the Chelsea match, actually, we have a decent run of fixtures. We have Brighton, Palace, and West Brom, I think, and Newcastle. And
yeah,
if we at least pick up, uh, I mean, it hurts to say this right now, but even if we are able to pick up at least a couple of wins out of these 4 or 5 games, I think that will kind of set a little bit of confidence and set a little bit of uh, some sort of rhythm back to the team, to at least propel us to finish, in 10th position, right, and kind of rescue the season.
yeah,
Maybe go on a cup run, because without Europe next season, I'm not sure what sort of. I mean, that'll have a massive financial impact on us. So yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll eventually get relegated. Yes, it's just we need to pull up a couple of at least 2 to 3 wins in the next 5 or 6 games to get some sort of confidence back in the team. And I still don't know
yeah,
whether Arteta will be around for all of those 6 games, right?
yeah.
That's something that we'll have to wait and watch.
Right. Yeah, just one final question from my side because, well, January is around the corner. What is the top priority signing in your view? Given taking into account all of these current situation around Arsenal with respect to budget and personnel requirements. Obviously, creative midfielder would probably be the number one priority. But who would you like to see in come through the door at Arsenal? Who can probably have a Bruno Fernandes like an impact and maybe salvage the season in the process.
Um, So a permanent transfer is going to be difficult given the state of finances. So signing, say, like an Awar or even a Buendia from Norwich, uh, I mean, that looks difficult. Um,
Yeah,
I think would be a slightly more achievable transfer would be Christian Eriksen from Inter. He's obviously not featured in Inter's plans, uh, and I actually rated him. I mean, I rated him when he was at Spurs.
yeah,
Hard for me to say that, but He does create opportunities. He has a mean free kick on him. Uh,
Yeah.
he does have a little bit of creative spark. If not, and we are actually getting Torreira back on loan because Atletico, I think they deemed him surplus to requirements. Maybe a swap deal. I don't know, a swap loan deal or whatever. I don't know what's the right um, decision going to be. If not, I mean, give Ozil a run. How worse can it get, right? Or one of the youngsters like Joe Willock or Emil Smith Rowe, give them a run of games. But I honestly cannot see, Willian just trudge around the park for more games like that without any creative input, right? So
Yeah.
I'd rather have a 18-year-old or 19-year-old have a bad game rather than a 32-year-old Champions League veteran, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks for this, Supreet. This was tremendous fun for me. I'm sure as a club, I'm sure Arsenal would be heading in the right direction soon enough. That, like you said, they're too big to fail. They're too good to fail. I think in terms of personnel, they have quality that should not be in 15th. That is my view, and I think we'll see a resurgence soon, be it with or without Mikel Arteta. But I do believe that you're not going to get relegated at the end of the day. All right, thanks, Supreet. Thank you so much. We'll conclude this episode.
Thank you.
Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the 6 Yards Pod. Stay safe and have an awesome weekend.